Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Piedmont Unitarian Universalist Church. Piedmont UU sits on the traditional land of the Catawba, the Kiwayi, and the Sugaree peoples. My name is Cosette Blackmer, and my pronouns are she, her. I will be serving as the worship assistant today for Reverend Dr. Amy Rio. We are a flourishing, vibrant, radically welcoming congregation which promotes diversity, inclusion, and social justice. We provide a safe haven for creative, intellectual growth, spiritual development, and a deep sense of community for all who join us. We hope our liberal religious values will challenge you to join us as a community that lives boldly and acts justly. To all our visitors and members, we are very glad that you're here in person or online, and we hope to see you again. Your presence is a gift to us. We have a few announcements this morning. We are finalizing the sign-ups for our Chalice Circles, small groups which meet to explore UU traditional themes each month. Please check your weekly emails to sign up or contact the office. Our Generosity Pledge Campaign Kickoff Picnic, that's a mouthful, is Saturday, September 23rd at the University Gathering right here. Please check your weekly announcements to sign up to attend this fun event. If you have not already filled out the Social Action Survey for 2024, there is a copy in your order of service that you can fill out today. Also, don't forget, next week is Water Communion or In-Gathering. Please bring some water with you from either your travels or even your spigot at home. For other important information about our vibrant community, please see your order of service, or if you are on our email list, check our monthly newsletter and weekly announcements. Whatever brought you to this place at this hour, we welcome you. May you find something that you need, and may you leave richer in spirit than when you arrived.
Hear these words now from Reverend Karen LeBlanc. This isn't just a place of worship. This isn't just a fellowship of like minds. This isn't just a Sunday morning filled with spirit and topped off with coffee and cookies. This is our church, our congregation, where we are building beloved community, where we are opening ourselves to each other, where we trust and love, rise and fall together. This is where we feel safe. This is where we know we are welcomed. This is where we belong. For this gift and so many others, we light our chalice. Please join me now in singing the words to lighting our chalice, the symbol of our faith.
Amen.
I invite you now to please stand as you are willing or able for our call to worship found in our bulletin. Welcome who come in friendship, who long for genuine community. Welcome who come in curiosity, full of questions or simply open.
May you embrace wonder and encounter new lights.
Welcome who come heavy with fatigue, weary from the troubles of the world or the troubles of your particular life.
May you rest and be filled in the sacred space.
Welcome who come with joy for flowing rivers and gentle breeze, for changing skies and great trees.
May the grace of the world be lasting and permanent.
Welcome who come with thanks for the altruism of the earth and the gift of human care.
May your grateful heart overflow and bless those around you.
Come, let us celebrate together this wondrous life. All right, so our opening hymn is found in our gray hymnal, number 360, Here We Have Gathered. Please be seated. Well, I think I'm going to do the time for all ages up here today, because it appears our children, along with a large number of our group today, are off on their final little summer travel. So I'm glad for all of you who are here, and glad for those members of our community who are off enjoying the last little summer holiday. So for our time for all ages, I plan to ask children a question. I'll ask y'all a question. How do people make you feel welcome? When you feel welcome, what happens? People smile. Yeah. Big smile. Big smile.
They look at you.
They look at you. Mm-hmm. Eye contact. Yes.
They listen.
Listen. Yeah, really listen. Mm-hmm. It's like if someone says, "How are you today?" You know, they really want to know, not just, "Oh, okay, well, you're fine," whatever. Hug. Yes.
Hospitality.
Hospitality. Come in, yeah, inviting people. Laughter.
Ask your opinion.
Yeah, ask your opinion. Yeah, I want to know what you're thinking.
Sometimes repeat what you're saying, just as you're doing now.
Yeah, repeat what, and if those of y'all may forget, the reason I always repeat what y'all say, like for here in Thanksgiving, is because we have a virtual community too, right? So, and that's so want to make certain that all the people who join us online can know what we people are saying here in this space.
If I was a child, I would invite them to play.
Invite them to play. Bless you.
As an adult.
Yeah, why don't you come play with me? So I know that's a wonderful thing, just to invite them to, yeah, share space and activity, things like that. Food. Yes, food. Food is always a good thing. So, drink, yes.
Coffee, right?
Coffee.
Hospitality.
Yeah, hospitality.
They stopped what they were planning to do and focus on you.
Yeah, stop what they were planning to do and focus on you. Yeah, I think so many of the important interactions we have in the world are things that we don't expect, right? You know, maybe we've got something on our mind, we're heading one way, and something occurs, and we have to change what we're doing. And sometimes if we're so focused on what it is we need to do or think we need to do, we might miss out on the really important things. Well, those are great answers. So as we are talking about what it means to be welcoming, I hope that we'll keep that in mind, you know, how we feel welcome, and that's how we can continue to welcome others. So let us now transition into our time of sharing. And this is a time for our ritual with sharing our sacred, I'm sorry, I'm still talking about feeling welcome. Everyone made me feel so welcome at my son's wedding last week in Colorado, and I'm still a little tired, so sometimes my brain's not totally connecting this morning. Y'all bear with me. So anyway, we have our time for ritual and sacred sharing at this time. We will share our joys, our sorrows, our concerns, and our milestones. So at this time, we light a candle for everyone who's been impacted by recent storms and weather events, especially heightened by climate change. We light a candle for the very important work of anti-racism, and especially the loved ones of the people murdered in Florida recently because of their race. And on this Labor Day weekend, we light candles for all the workers to have fair and equitable working conditions and compensation. For the ongoing struggle for civil rights in Iran. All areas of violence around the world, and especially the war in Ukraine. Now at this time, you are invited to come forward if you would like to do so. You may fill out a prayer card to place on our prayer wall. You may light your own candle of joy or concern, or you may simply place a stone in our shared water. You are welcome to come forward. invite us now into a time of quiet rest, meditation, or prayer. During this time of silence, I invite you to take some deep breaths and to invite a spirit of welcome into your body, welcoming yourself and all that you are, and welcoming all that is good in this world to be part of you. This time of silence will follow the sound of the singing bowl, and then after our time of silence, Darlene will lead us with our musical meditation.
Our wisdom reading this morning is Community Means Strength, an excerpt from the book Dreaming the Dark by Starhawk. We are all longing to go home, to some place we have never been, a place half remembered and half envisioned, we can only catch glimpses of from time to time. Community. Somewhere there are people to whom we can speak with passion without having the words catch in our throat. Somewhere a circle of hands will open to receive us, eyes will light up as we enter, voices will celebrate us whenever we come into our power. Community means strength that joins our strength to do the work that needs to be done. Arms to hold us when we falter, a circle of healing, a circle of friends. Some place where we can be free.
Thank you, Cosette. Now, how many of us here remember the old PBS show, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood? Right, I think most of us would. So, in fact, I met someone on Friday who was wearing, someone about my age, who was wearing a Mr. Rogers t-shirt. And I said, oh, I've just been thinking about Mr. Rogers. So it's this old PBS show, and as many of us recall, it began with Mr. Rogers very calmly entering his home, and he would change into slippers and a cardigan and sing a nice song, asking all the viewers to be his neighbor. Now this show, which I think on the surface just seems very nice, right? Welcoming, was actually radical in a number of ways. Fred Rogers was a Presbyterian minister, and he wanted intentionally to create this show as a way to support all children, everyone. There was, in the late 60s, he had a racially diverse cast of different people, like the police officer, mail carrier, people who would come by. And one day he was soaking his feet in a kiddie pool because it was a warm day. And he invited one of his neighbors, and I can't remember if it's a police officer or postal carrier, but also to take off his shoes and socks and share that kiddie pool. Now, his neighbor was black. Mr. Rogers was white. This was in a time period when this first aired, where public swimming pools were still racially segregated. It was a radical message. A message of welcome and inclusivity for all. Now, our theme this month is welcoming. We are exploring what it means to be a welcoming community, what it means to welcome people back from summer journeys with water communion and gathering next week, and 2 weeks after that, what it means to welcome children with our Children's Sabbath service. Now, when we think about community, we've been talking a little bit about what comes to mind. There's so many different types of community. We might think of people we love, people it's easy for us to be around, the people we're closest to. We might think of the neighborhood in which we live. We might think of our workplace. And in today's world, we might think of an online community, perhaps a Facebook community or a website where we interact with people, or a Substack community. We interact with people in comments. Community can mean so many different things in today's world. Now, the concept of physical community has had a marked change since World War II. Now, at this point in history, suburbs started to become a thing. People began to move out from cities and live in these more suburban areas. And these new homes that were being built were markedly changed by architecture. There's been some really interesting studies done on this. Now think about homes which were built before World War II. Some of us may live in those. I certainly have lived in those. Front porches were a standard feature, weren't they? We might have sidewalks, people sitting on front porches. They would sit there and see all the other neighbors, maybe sometimes be a little bit too curious about what the other neighbors were doing, right? Yeah. And engage and interact with them. When my son was little, 25 years ago, we lived in a 1920 bungalow in Asheville on this very steep road with broken sidewalks. And every afternoon about the same time, our postal carrier, Rob, would walk the neighborhood delivering the mail, which was always in a box up on someone's porch, like attached to one of the columns of this front porch. And Rob obviously made such an impression, I still remember his name when I can't remember my own name half the time, right? So But it reminded me of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, which my son and I would watch on occasion. Caleb loved Rob, and so every afternoon, didn't matter the weather, we would have to sit on our porch swing and wait for Rob to come by, and he would hand Caleb the mail and talk to Caleb for a few minutes. So in the 1950s, when architecture changed and so many of these new builds, front porches weren't really a thing. There might be a small stoop, but construction started to add back decks on a home. Many of us probably have back decks too, right? So families, when they were outside, were not in the front facing everyone else, people who might come by. They would be in the backyard, oftentimes enclosed away from their neighbors. Now, studies have shown that people don't really know their neighbors like they used to. There's a number of factors for this. Part of it is the mobility of our society, but also the architecture of our homes and the ways in which we live. I think one of the positive things that occurred during the pandemic was people who were forced to stay in their homes so many times began to interact with other people in their neighborhood and began to get to know people they just hadn't known before. Now, as we think about neighbors and welcoming, there's one story from the biblical narrative which always comes to my mind. And some of you may have heard it. It's a story that Jesus, who was Jewish and talking to a Jewish group, told. He talked about the Good Samaritan. Now, we actually have Good Samaritan laws in our country. People use the word Samaritan, and if someone hears the word Samaritan, what comes to mind? Helping. Yeah, very positive, a good person who's helping. Well, back in these days, 2,000 years ago, when this story was being told, a Samaritan was someone who was from a different kind of racial, ethnic group, and who Jewish people did not interact with, that religious leaders said they were unclean and looked down upon them. It was a group of people that people would try to avoid. So as this Jewish rabbi, Jesus, is telling this story, and he talks about someone who is attacked on this road and left by the wayside of the road, possibly for dead. Two different good religious people, one a rabbi, walk by this man and even pass by the other side of the road and don't help. The people you would think who would help would definitely be their neighbors. The person who did help was the Samaritan, someone who was despised in that community. So when Jesus is asked this story, who is my neighbor? He's asked this question, who is my neighbor? And he tells the story about, well, the person you despise the most, that's who your neighbor is. It was a radical story. Now, when we today think about who is our neighbor, who we welcome to our community, it's easy to find people that are like us, that we have things in common with, that it's comfortable being around. How do we change who we are, transform who we are, and how we engage with others so that our neighbor truly becomes everyone around us? Now, communities can be intentional or accidental. So while I'm talking about TV shows today, I have another favorite TV show I want to mention. It's currently on Netflix, and although it was on NBC years ago, it's called Community, a little 30-minute sitcom. Anyone? Thank you. Okay. This happened at my Salisbury gathering too. It was a younger person who had seen the show. So, cassette. I'm sorry, I didn't see cassette. Thank you. It's a great, hysterical show. But also makes you feel good. A wonderful show. So this show is about a community college where there's a diverse group of students who form a study group. They're diverse along age, race, religious lines. And they unintentionally form this community that becomes really a family. And even throughout the time that the show runs, they begin to talk about being family. Now, because each individual was so unique and so different among this study group, conflict often ensued. And that's natural, isn't it? Different people, different ways of approaching the world. Now, if you decide only to watch one show from this, one episode, I want you to watch the holiday season episode from the very first season. It's called Comparative Religion. Obviously, with my bent, I'm gonna like that. So every member of this group had a very different view of the holiday season. Actually, it's kind of like a Unitarian Universalist church. One time, yeah. Okay, yeah, yes. Netflix, Comparative Religion on Community. So, and of course, hilarity ensued, and then they learned some ways to kind of respect and to live with some of these different views of the holidays. So even with the closest of communities, being welcoming means that different people with different perspectives and ideas will inevitably bring about conflicts. But true community and welcome will guide us through these conflicts with love and compassion and justice. Angel Kyoto Williams Sensei wrote, "It's the community's job to figure out how we can stretch into the so-called margins to broaden our understanding and the ability to be inclusive. Inclusivity is not, how do we make you a part of what we are? But instead, how do we become more of what you are?" Welcoming to community does not mean that we expect others to change to adapt to our community. I'm going to say that again. Welcoming to community does not mean that we expect others to change to adapt to our community. Welcoming to community means that our community is transformed by the inclusion of others. I think as many of you know, my son was married in Colorado last weekend. It was a very wonderful event, and I have a new daughter-in-law who I love dearly. New in-laws, I love Sarah's parents. So we legally have a new member of our family now. And that changes our family. Not just who's visiting who on what holidays, right? But it changes our families. It's not that Sarah has to adapt to our family. It's that this is the new dynamic, a new creation now. And of course, in 4 weeks, I'll have a new son-in-law, since my kids just love me so much and wanted to get married 5 weeks apart. But, and so Will is part of our family, right? And so it's not just Sarah and Will, but it's their families. And I love both their families, feel very fortunate. But this is a new entity. And they don't have to change to connect with me. We're all changing together and adapting together. And that's what true welcome means. And it can be scary, right? I'm not saying this is something easy. As we welcome others to our community, true welcome means that we, as individuals and as a community, we will not be the same. Right? We will be transformed. As people continue to come into the community of Piedmont Unitarian Universalist Church, we don't know what that means, right? It's going to continue to transform us. It's scary, but it's also exciting. What we do know is that with living with the true spirit of welcome, this new creation, this transformation will be far more beautiful than anything we might create if we try to maintain control over what true welcome and inclusion looks like. Today, let us welcome to community. Let us be open to the transformation that will occur within ourselves and within our church community. May it be so.
Let there be an offering to sustain and strengthen this place which is sacred to so many of us. A community of memory and of hope, for we now are the keepers of the dream. Our shared plate recipient this month is North Carolina Environmental Justice Network. North Carolina Environmental Justice Network is a grassroots, people of color-led coalition of community organizations and their supporters who work with low-income communities and people of color on issues of climate, environmental, racial, and social justice. We ask that you place your gift in the baskets as they make their way around the room, and you are always welcome to give online at puuc.org or by texting PUUC at the number 73256. Today's offering will now gratefully be received.
We give thanks for these generous gifts from your hearts and your spirits and your labor. And we know that these gifts will be used for good in this world to help spread welcome and community. I invite us now to please stand as you are willing or able for our closing hymn found in our gray hymnal, number 131, Love Will Guide Us. Before we extinguish our chalice, I want to offer thanks to all the many volunteers who help make our worship service possible. And we also offer thanks for Darlene, our guest pianist today. Good to have you with us. Before you leave today, I also ask that you will take your hymnals and place them back on the cart near the piano. So let us move towards our conclusion, as we always do each Sunday, by taking time to give thanks, by voicing some of the things for which we are grateful today.
I'm grateful for the presence of the motorcycle riders that I saw as I drove in this morning. It always fills me with joy to see them.
All right, motorcycle riders, yes.
I know what their purpose is this weekend. It's wonderful.
Oh,
I'm grateful for the changing seasons. I hate to see summer go, but everything's so beautiful right now. So
Yeah.
I'm grateful for.
for the changing seasons. A little bit cooler weather for a few days too, so yeah.
Clear skies.
Clear skies,
Cold mornings.
cold mornings, yeah.
I'm grateful for this community.
For this community.
Grateful for the view out these windows.
Yeah, the view out the windows. Yes. I'm grateful for my new daughter-in-law and her family, and a wonderful weekend last weekend in Colorado.
Amanda.
Very grateful for Amanda, who's single-handedly doing our tech today, so we are. Well, we give thanks for all these things and so much more which we hold in our hearts today. So let us go forth, extending welcome in our thoughts, words, deeds, and the very way in which we live. We now extinguish our chalice, but we carry its light, its warmth, and its meaning with us until we meet again. May we go in peace, believe in peace, create peace wherever we may wander. May it be so.
Blessed be.